All right, beautiful people. Today we're going to talk about dividing decimals. So you learned dividing yesterday in lab, and so today we're just going to add one small little extra detail for dividing decimals. Excuse me. All right, so our rule for dividing decimals is going to be no decimals outside the house. No decimals in the divisor. All right, so I'm gonna grab no decimals outside the house. And so as we are dividing today, let's talk through some of the ways you're going to see division. So the first way that you're going to see division is your normal cowboy divided by horse, right? Number divided by number. All right, the second way you're going to see division is with a fraction, so cowboy over horse. And occasionally you might see it with a slash. So those are the three ways you're going to see division. And remember, when we do set up division, we have our cowboy inside the house. He takes off his boots and hat and eats 2 donuts. And inside the house, and outside the house, we have the horse. So inside cowboy, he lives in a house. The horse gets to stay outside. Remember, this is just a new take on your divisor, right? Your divisor's outside and your dividend is inside. Dividend and divisor. Okay, so let's go through some examples. So remember, no decimals outside the house. That means no decimals in the horse, aka the divisor. So I'm going to write that. No decimal in the horse, which is your divisor. Okay, so just make yourself a note. All right. There we go. All right, so we have our first problem. We have 9.6 divided by 0.8. So our first number is our cowboy. We're always going to label. And our second number is our horse. And remember, we cannot have any decimals in our horse. So if I were to set this up, I would have my horse outside and my cowboy inside. Well, I know I can't have a decimal out here, so I need to move my decimal point. So I'm going to grab my decimal and I am going to hop it to the back of the number. How many hops did it take? Just 1 for this number, but I can't move it outside and not move it inside. So I have to make the same matching hop on the inside. So now on the outside, I have a whole number 8. I have a whole horse now. And inside, I have a whole 96. So your decimals are going to be stacked, okay? Boots and hat stacked on top of one another. And I'm going to go ahead and add a donut or a 0 behind it. All right. As I am solving, I'm going to go ahead and make myself a top-bottom chart. So on the side with top, I'm going to count by ones. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And on the side with the bottom, I'm going to count by my outside horse, okay? So I'm going to count by my 8s, So I have 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, and 48. And that top-bottom chart is just going to help me as I divide this problem. That way I don't have to think about my 8s. I have them already written right here. So as I divide, I'm going to set my table and I say, okay, my 9 gets a spot and my 6 gets a spot and my 0 gets a spot. So I need to make sure I fill in all those spots with a number. So I ask myself, can 8 people sit in 9 chairs? Yes. If I looked at where would 9 go on my list here, I would say, oh, 9 fits right here in between 8 and 16. So what's above that? 1. So 8 goes into 9 one time. And on the bottom, we will have an 8. 9 minus 8 is 1. And bring down our 6. So now I have to ask myself, can 9 people sit in 16 chairs? Yes, 16 is on my list right here. So how many times? 2 times. So on top, I write a 2, and on bottom, I write a 16. And 16 minus 16 is 0. Excuse me. So I'm all done. And I don't need my extra 0, so I can just fill that with a 0. And now I have a whole 12. A whole 12 is my answer. All right, let's try it again with example number 2. First things first, I'm gonna label my cowboy and my horse. Okay, so I'm gonna label my cowboy and my horse. And I'm gonna set them up in my division house. So I'm gonna draw my division house. I'm gonna put my horse outside, and I'm gonna put my cowboy inside. Well, this time, I'm gonna put my boots and hat stacked. I can see that my outside number, my divisor, my horse, does not have a decimal. It is already a whole 14. So because it is already a whole 14, I don't need to move my decimal. So I'm just going to set the table, my 2. Ooh, that's the wrong thing. There we go. My 2 gets a spot, my 5 gets a spot, and my other 2 gets a spot. And again, I have that big bold decimal already ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and create a top-bottom chart again for this problem. So I have my top and my bottom. On the top side, we're going to count by ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And on the other side, I'm going to count by the divisor or outside number. So in this case, I'm going to count by 14s. So I have 14, 28, 42, 56, 70, 84, 98, and 112. And obviously, if you don't know your 14s, you could just continue to add 14 all the way down and make your list. And again, it's just easier if you go ahead and make your list. That way, when we're dividing, we don't have to stop every single time. So first question I'm gonna ask myself is can 14 people sit in 2 chairs? Can 14 people sit in 2 chairs? Well, no, 2 would be up here above 14, and so that first one is going to be no, that's a 0. All right, so then I ask myself, can 14 people sit in 25 chairs? So when I look at my list over here, where would 25 fall? Well, 25 would be right in between 14 and 28. So we look above and we say how many times? 1. So 1 time on top, 14 goes on bottom, and I subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1, 2 minus 1 is 1, and I bring down my 2. All right, then I ask myself, can 14 people sit in 112 chairs? Of course they can. Let's find 112 on my list. Well, it's exactly 112. And on top, we're going to put an 8. And on bottom, we have our 112. So we put our 8 and our 112. And we get 0. And we filled all of our plates at the table, all of our spaces. And so my answer is 1.8. So we have 12 up here, 1.8. All right, one more example just to make sure we understand. And we have 7 divided by 0.4. So this time it looks like a fraction. I'm still labeling. So when you see a cowboy, he always sits on top of his horse. That's how you know which one is the cowboy, which one is the horse. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set it up in my division house. My horse has to live outside and my cowboy gets to go inside. Well, when he goes inside, his horse is not whole, okay? So we need to make that a whole horse. We cannot have decimals in our divisor. So we are going to grab our decimal place and we are going to hop it to the back. So how many hops does it take? Again, just one for this one, one hop. And we have to make a matching hop inside. They have to match inside and outside. And then we just fill that empty space with a 0. So now I'm ready to set up my division again. So I have 4 as a whole number outside now, and I have 70 as a whole number inside, boots and hat, and I'll go ahead and eat a donut just in case. I can set my table. 7 gets a plate, 0 gets a plate, 0 gets a plate. And I can go ahead and make my top bottom chart for my horse or my divisor, which is 4s. So again, on the top, I'm going to count by 1s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And on the bottom, we're going to count by 4s. So 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, and 32. And now I'm ready to divide. So I ask myself, how many times can 4 go into 7? Or how can 4 people sit in 7 chairs? Yes, if I have 7 chairs, that would fit right here in between 4 and 8. So we look above and we say on top, I'm going to have a 1. On bottom, I'm going to have a 4. So it goes in 1 time, subtract. 7 minus 4 is 3. Bring down my 0. All right, this time I ask myself, can 4 people sit in 30 chairs? So I look at my list and I say, all right, 30 would fit right here in between 28 and 32. So we look right above it and we say on top 7, on bottom 28. On top 7, on bottom 28. 30 minus 28 is going to be 2. So I can't stop because I can't leave a remainder in in middle school. So I'm going to bring down my 0 or my donut. And I'm going to say, can 4 people sit in 20 chairs? And the answer is yes. 20 is on my list. So how many times go on top? 5. And 20 goes on bottom. 20 minus 20 is 0. So now that I've zeroed out, I filled in all of my blanks. So my answer is 17.5 or 17 and 5/10. And that is dividing decimals, guys. So the big difference is really just no decimals outside. Remember, if there are decimals outside, you have to make a hop to the back, however many hops you need, and you have to make those hops match inside and outside. All right, go divide decimals.